Hey humans, how's it going? Susan Ruth here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Human Podcast. This is episode 285. I had a conversation with Sister Irene O'Neill. She is the president of Sisters Rising Worldwide. It's an incredible organization, humanitarian nonprofit. They connect nuns all over the world. It's like a Facebook, but for nuns, as best as I can describe it. It's an internal thing where they can all talk to each other all around the world and help each other, help their communities with humanitarian issues, with aid and resources and education, and to protect kids from trafficking and all sorts of stuff. It's really quite phenomenal. And Sister Irene O'Neill, is phenomenal. She's also the former executive director of Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet Ministries Foundation. It only took me 20 tries to say Carondelet right, and I probably still got it wrong. She's the board chair also of Bethlehem University Foundation. The woman is a powerhouse. She resonates with love and kindness and empathy and wisdom. I could have talked to her all day. Really, really cool woman. So I'm so excited for you to hear this episode. And it's important to note that if you'd like to help Sisters Rising Worldwide, it's really easy, srw.org. You can learn all about them, even more than what we talked about on the show. So definitely check it out. They do incredible stuff for the world. And we need all that. We need all the help we can get. So, all right, in other news, Hey Human can be found on Instagram and Facebook for the social media. My personal social media is Susan Ruthism. You can find heyhumanpodcast.com by going to heyhumanpodcast.com. It's that easy. And on there, you'll find a links page. Every episode gets its own links page. This one is no different. And we talk about so many fascinating things. I had a really good time putting together the links page for y'all. So lots of information there, including a way to directly connect to Sisters Rising. So that's important to me as it is to them. You can email me, susan@heyhumanpodcast.com. Love to hear from you. Rate and review Hey Human on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. It's super helpful, and I very much appreciate it. If you want to check out more about what I do, go to susanruth.com, and you can sign up on the mailing list there. And every once in a while, I'll send out a mailer with all sorts of fun things on it. So definitely sign up for that if you're interested. And I think that's about it. Thank you for listening. Take care of each other. Be well. Be kind. And here we go. Sister Irene O'Neill, welcome to Hey Human.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I learned about you through Michael, and he is extraordinary. And I did a little project with him a few weeks ago, and we were chatting, and I noticed a pin on his lapel. And I said, explain to me what the pin is for. And he said, it's Sisters Rising Worldwide. I said, well, what's that? And then he gave me a little synopsis and told me about you and just the true, purest love in his voice and his body language and everything when he talked about you and the program. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to talk with her. Do you think she'll talk with me? And he said, I think I can arrange that. So here we are.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. I know Michael is so awesome. He is really, he spreads good news. Let me tell you, he is good news.
He seems to really understand what empathy is and what charity is and what the, that true idea of what love is supposed to be, that non-reciprocity is just, it is for its sake thing. Yeah. So anyway, enough about Michael.
Okay.
Do you prefer to be called Sister or Sister Irene or Sister O'Neill?
You can call me Sister Irene. Sister Irene sounds good.
Sister Irene. Okay, great. Let's start with what in the world got you to become a nun? That doesn't seem like your everyday thing. Even if you're raised up in the Catholic school system, which is an exceptional education, still there's I imagine, a bit of a chasm to get from student to nun.
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. It's kind of a long path. Well, actually, when I was young, we had nuns in elementary school, and they were just really fun. And I thought, I mean, I didn't think, I think everybody maybe thought about being a nun, all the girls at that time, but they were just really fun. But then you get to high school, and the boys are so cute. And I was in a all girls school, but we had a lot of dances and stuff. And we got to know the boys, and that was really fun. So wasn't thinking about being a nun then. And then actually we have a nearby women's college, which is spectacular. But I thought, well, there are boys at the University of Minnesota. So I went to the University of Minnesota, and I thought I would, I didn't really know what I wanted to go into because I loved everything. And I thought, but maybe being a drama teacher would be really fun. And so I ended up taking a class that turns out was taught by a sister of St. Joseph, which is what I am, from the college, the women's college. And she's an upper Midwest consultant in this. She was teaching, the class was how to teach teachers how to teach drama. And so I thought, well, that sounds fun, Anyway, what I noticed within just a couple of class periods is that what she was really doing was teaching children how to love themselves as they are. And it was so jaw-dropping for me at that time and that age. I was probably 19 years old, and I got it. And I didn't know that the Sister Peggy was her name, that she realized I got it. I thought that was, it was jaw-dropping, and I thought maybe everybody understood it, in the same way. So anyway, the class did a couple of things. One is, at the end of the class, I realized I should really go into education for elementary education, because children should learn young how to love themselves. And so anyway, that was one thing. But at the very end of the class, Sister Peggy comes up to me and she says, I give these workshops, in these other different states, and I messed up. I have 2 workshops on the same weekend, 2 weekends from now, and I'd like you to take the one in North Dakota, and I'll take the one in Iowa. So, oh my gosh, what was it? So I thought I hardly even understood what it was, but I also knew that I understood the concept. I knew how to do it. I felt confident there. So she said, you come to my house, and I'll have all the materials you need ready for you, and I'll put it in a suitcase, and you'll be ready to go. And so I went to her house at dinner time. So we went at dinner, and between, passing the bread and the butter, they would say, so how was your day, to the other sisters sitting around the table? And that was jaw-dropping. They'd say, oh, this family of 10 came up from Texas, and it was, it was middle of winter in Minnesota, which is horrible. And, they didn't have a place to live. They didn't have any food. They didn't have winter clothing. She said, well, I just called sister so-and-so for the clothing, and then the sister so-and-so for the food. And then I thought, oh my gosh, they got to go somewhere. Well, then I called sister so-and-so. Do you have room for 10? Oh, yeah. And that was just one of the nuns sitting around the table. Then another nun, she teaches at the college, and there was a student who looked sad. And now here I'm at the university, and we have classes of 500 almost. You don't think of anybody noticing you. But at that college, the student looked sad, and they said, what's wrong? Well, my dad lost his job, so this will be my last semester. Well, so this nun said, well, I'll just call sister so-and-so. And they worked out something, and she could continue school there. And it went around the table, and all the nuns worked in these other places. And I was like, who are these people? And so then I went to North Dakota, and I did the workshop. And then, of course, now Sister Peggy realized she could be doing 2 workshops at the same time, all the time. And so I went to another place, and she said, come on, I'm going to be at this party. And you just come and you can pick up the suitcase full of the materials at the party. Well, okay. So I go to the party. And one of the nuns yells out, must have been like a Super Bowl party or something. And one of the nuns yells out again, the crowd of nuns. And she says, hey, I need 20 beds. Does anybody have 20 beds? And somebody shouted out, I have 20 beds. It's like, how do you have 20 beds? Well, she worked in the hospital, and they changed the beds around. Well, then they're all laughing. They're saying, okay, who's going to have a truck? And one of the nuns says, I have a truck. And they said, no, you don't. And she had a truck. She said, I have people. I can get the beds moved. And they were starting another shelter. Anyway, I just couldn't stop being with these people. There was a problem, and let's move. And they did it together. It took all of them. It takes a community to really work at what the issues are. And there was this community of women, just, I have the beds, I can move them, I'll get a truck, I'll do this, And it just was phenomenal to me. It was just, it even became more interesting than boys at that time, so, which was a lot, because they were still very cute in college and, after college. I didn't join right away, but I eventually joined after I traveled a bit and stuff. So.
Did you grow up in a religious family? Was God a prominent figure in the house, or for that matter, the Pope?
Yeah, I would say that it was very family oriented. God, it wasn't, it was something that was, I would say that the model and the language we talked about at home was more about Jesus. Like, what would Jesus do? If you see somebody in your classroom, sort of isolated, reach out to them, so pay attention who's around you and be kind. And our family was fairly big, and I was towards the top end. And so even at home, it was, if you're going to play a game of kickball, make sure it works for the 6-year-old with you, that kind of thing. So we were always adapting and including. And so it was, so I don't know, the spirituality was very strong. But we went to church, and there were only 8 of us, so it was average for an Irish family.
Wow, 8 kids.
Yeah, it was a blast. But here in St. Paul, there's a lot of, the families might be 15 or 12 is really common. So I used to always have to apologize. They'd say, how many kids in your family? I'd say, well, we only had 8.
Wow, that's amazing.
Crazy. Yeah, it's fun, really fun. Still is fun.
As a kid, I'm always fascinated by children growing up in faithful homes. I think, and no matter what the religion, because I think that they're, for a long time, well, first, you're born into a family and your parents are the thing. And then you start to understand the thing outside the thing, or whatever that is. And for you, do you remember a point where it shifted from, I believe these things because my family believes these things, to I believe these things because I believe these things?
Oh, yes. When I was in high school, and the Sisters of St. Joseph taught me there, and there was a class where they said, this class, what we want are your questions that are outside the box. And so, high school kids will say stuff like, why do you have to go to church on Sunday? Why can't you go to church on Tuesday? Why do you have to? So you ask, why are these rules important? And so what kind of happened was there was a great freedom to say, well, why? Why do we say these words? Why do we gather at this time? And that gives you an opportunity to hear replies from your own heart. I mean, you sort of know things from yourself. Well, people gather if they gather all on Tuesday, that's kind of cool. But they do gather on Sunday, that's cool. If you want to see it as a community, or you start bringing your own meaning towards some of the rituals. So we did that through high school because of that class. It was really interesting. I always think that if people are asking the right questions, they'll come up with the right answers. If they're not asking questions, what happens? Nothing,
Yeah,
so
I agree
that
with
really
that.
helped. Yeah, so it helped.
Growing up as one of the elder children in a family with so many kids, if you were already sort of not like the extra parent, or that vibe probably for the littler ones, and you have to live your life with equitable concepts, the littlest one has to also be cared for as which is you can reflect that onto the planet. The littlest shall be helped as much as the biggest, and in fact, the littlest needs to be helped more. Yeah. So it sounds like you already were growing up in a family that had that understanding. Mm-hmm. It's not surprising to me that you would go into a lifestyle that where you could reflect that back onto the world. But it's, again, a leap to then say, I'm going to devote my life to a particular order and to be a nun. How does one make that major decision?
Major leap. Well, let me think. How would I even begin to answer that? I have to say that it didn't feel that major, because, and I'm trying to get back into a 21-year-old head. Well, I didn't join till I was 26, really, or somewhere around there. But so that those young years, you know how that generation and every generation, that those ages feel like we got the answers. Okay, now, we're the adults now. They put the old people off to the side because, boy, we got the fresh ideas, and
Sure.
And so there was, for me, I saw with the sisters this ability to change society, literally right in front of your eyes, change society. And how they did it was by lifting up the people who needed to be lifted up. And they could do that. They would say, let's just start a school for the immigrants here. Let's just do that. Well, we've got a problem over in this area with homeless people. Well, why don't we start like a prayer community, and we can just invite them in, have hot lunches, and the prayer we could just open the newspaper and say, who do we need to pray for today? And how are we going to do that? And how, there's no stopping. It was all, and in our, again, Sisters of St. Joseph, we talk about keeping your eyes wide open and your sleeves rolled up, ready for ministry, and that you're dividing. You're reaching out into society and looking for where's the need, and then you start with the need with the people who are in need. They have answers too, so you ask them. So right away, you learn this way of involving the community, the regular community, to help themselves. But what the nuns are able to do is to keep bringing in other resources, people resources. And I mean, it was so empowering, and it's still 40 plus years later, it hasn't stopped. I mean, it's still going on. It's going on right here in the Twin City area with the sisters. It's going on all over the world with sisters.
Sure. Yeah. If you hadn't gone to, or had not been influenced by the St. Joseph sisters and that order and being taught by them, when somebody decides to become a nun, is it like picking a college where you have a whole bunch of different orders and you think, which one do I want to go to? Or is it more like a draft for football where they say, hey, that looks like a great nun to be. You're our number one draft pick. Which is it more like?
Well, for me, it was the world that I was immersed in.
Yeah.
But there were other orders here. But this one was in the area where I am and where I knew I could influence. And there are some people who join orders who they want to, I don't want to say travel, but they want to, serve in other places. And I just love this Twin City area. And so, so I started here, and that was the group. There was another group of sisters. They were very, most of them had backgrounds like farmers, they came from farms, and really, it's a different, I grew up in the suburbs. So like I hadn't been on a farm, and so I did the language, or the worlds felt different for me. But this world of the Sisters of St. Joseph you feel like you're home. Sisters join the orders that feels like home to them. Mm-hmm. That's the best way to say it, I guess.
And every order has a different vibe or plan or goal right. They all
different focus and different personalities, and so
it's so fascinating to me. Well, let's get into so you're in your 20s, you've made the commitment to join the sisterhood, and you start that process, which I imagine is quite a lot of learning along the way. Do nuns have doctorates? How is that, like priests do? Or
no, priests don't have doctorates necessarily.
Oh, I thought you had to have. I thought priests had to have doctorates in theology.
I think some do, but I don't know if they all do. But they have further education.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know what degree it ends up being, but they have further education. Yeah.
But you do.
I do. Yeah. A lot of our sisters have doctorates. One of the reasons is that, so this order that I joined, they like to have the people, it's so typical us. The sisters of St. Joseph like to be in charge of this stuff. If you could direct the hospital, then that's really great, because then you can say, we're going to welcome the people in the streets, and we're going to train our staff to learn how to be with the people, because these are our people. We want to be able to run stuff. Now, not everybody has a doctorate, but we have our degrees we have a lot of degreed people. So we always say in our nursing home, it's probably the most highly educated spot in Minnesota right now, because all of our retired sisters are there, and they have so many different degrees. It's amazing. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Did you bring up something that I always think about is just this beautiful treasure of knowledge that exists in elderly people that are at this point. I'm sure the elderly nuns are to get visitors and all that kind of stuff, but so many elderly that don't, and just their stories and their knowledge that's just in a room somewhere is mind-boggling to me. It
is. It still is to me too, because I could sit at a lunch table there with women, and there might be a former college president or two, somebody who's run the huge healthcare system, somebody who is a master's or with a PhD in music and taught thousands of students in music, or it is or ran. Founded and ran several social service agencies that are still flourishing 50 years later. It is amazing. But, what they do is they talk about you. If you came there and were sitting at the table with us, their interest would be you. You know what I mean? It's really, I don't know. I still feel such joy in my heart that I made this decision. I've never looked back. It just has really been a very strong sense that, wow, I feel like which is why Sisters Rising Worldwide, why we started that, was that if people knew that there were 650,000 women on the planet right now, as we're sitting here talking, doing this around the world, caring for the people around them, that nobody would feel hopeless, which is going back to Michael Nagy. That's why he feels excited, because he knows that he's being held up by this ocean of help and people that are really working to make things better around the planet for everybody,
At what point did you decide to start the Sisters Rising Worldwide? And also explain the vision of that.
Oh, okay. I had already been, I'd had several lifetimes of other jobs, which, everyone was kind of like the step towards the next job. And so finally, so for a while, after I got my doctorate in education, then I was asked by the sisters to start a foundation to fund our free healthcare system and all of our social programs that we have in the metropolitan area. And it was through that process, which I did for 20 years, that I was running into people who had resources that could fund, the planet. I mean, really, it was, and I remember thinking, oh my goodness, that's too much money for us. We don't need a gift like that, thinking like that. And then I thought, oh my gosh, we could be funding people around the planet. And one gentleman said to me, actually, sister, I have so many resources that no nonprofit's big enough to take it. What are the nuns doing? And I knew in my head, I thought, I know the answer to that. And I could tell him, I wanted to say, pick a country, I'll tell you what they're doing there. And so what I ended up doing instead was I took a sabbatical from my foundation job, and I gathered what I call my merry band of sisters who were visionaries as well. And they're really smart and really fun to be with. And we spent a year meeting in different parts of the United States and saying, could you answer that question too? Could you say, what's happening? Name a country, El Salvador. name Nigeria, name anywhere. Could you name what's going on there? And they kept saying, yeah. And I said, well, let's check it out. And we have a lot of sisters at the United Nations. And so and they represent 200 congregations around the world, which means tens of thousands of people. We asked them, do you know what the root cause is? Are the sisters know what the root cause is on the ground? And is this, yep. And so what we realized is that the sisters' orders, as you kind of referred to a little bit ago, they're all siloed from each other. So the Sisters of St. Joseph communicate, the Notre Dames communicate with each other, the Benedictines communicate with each other, but very few of the members can talk to everybody. And so we don't have in aggregate the stories that would literally change the narrative of the planet if we knew what everybody was doing on the ground. And so that was the precursor. And so we realized that we had to develop a platform that would connect the 650,000 sisters, where they would find each other in this platform and start sharing their best practices and all the wisdom and wealth that they've had and learned over the century, really.
Like social media, like Nun Book or something? Is it?
It's that's funny. I hadn't thought about that. We call it the Peace Room. So if you can picture, you can open up into the Peace Room, and you can click on the map of the world, and you can click on one of the countries, and up comes the sisters who have come on, and you can click on any of them and say, "Hey, what are you doing today?" Or how, or you could find each other that way. They come on, but so where that becomes important is like, on the border right now between Mexico and the U.S., there are people coming way beyond just Central America. They're coming from the Congo and Turkey and all different countries. And what the sisters can do now is they can go to the Peace Room. They could click on, say, the Congo, and ask the sisters, do you need help? Your people are coming here. There must be some trauma in the country. Is there any way that we can help and get the resources that you need? What might help the people there? Or what, or is anybody looking for, is somebody lost and they're here on the border? Or, it's a way to communicate with each other. And it is just for sisters. So it's very closed. And there are some that are right now saying, we need food, but our farmers, we don't have the land. We can't, there's been marauders. They've been killing the farmers. There's not enough food. We don't have land. What do we do? And another sister says, do you know about vertical gardening? You can do it right up the walls of your house. And, so they're sharing information and stuff. It's phenomenal. It is really phenomenal. So,
and every one of those begets another person. So that, I am assuming you also source humanitarians on top of the humanitarian nuns. The nuns say, we've got, as you said in the beginning, this person has a truck. This person has gardening tools. This person has fresh water access, or whatever it is, or medical aid. And so even though the Peace Room is an insular thing amongst the nuns themselves, the branches extend everywhere.
Oh, everywhere. And what we, if you think about, say 650,000 sisters, and then you just imagine to yourself that each one of those sisters knows one person. And then you've got 1.3 million people around the world, but the nuns know hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And now you've got really a network, an intact network of tens of millions of people who are moving their resources to solve root causes, and problems, and helping each other. And and once, like in El Salvador, my gosh, the nuns and the people they serve are the only people who are safe. And what happens there is that the people they serve carry inside them what it's needed, the way that the nuns are being, they carry it inside them. So they show how to be in life, kind of. And the people that go through their hands now become respected and known by their community in the same way that they treat the nuns. And so it expands through the people. The way of being is just modeled in the beginning by the sisters, but it doesn't matter unless it is carried out with the other people. That's how healing happens. You have to involve the people of the community, and they become their own kind of saviors. The nuns just kind of start it.
Well, it's interesting because I know historically nuns are placed in places that, the tough dude with all his weapons wouldn't walk through at night. And yet there's, Sister Margaret or Sister Anne or Sister Peggy or whatever. That talk about that a little bit, because I don't know that people are aware. You're warriors in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Warriors for peace and love and for change, but warriors nonetheless.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, somebody once said to me recently that nuns are like firefighters. Wherever the fire is, they jump in first. They're jumping in. I think one of the reason why people don't understand that the sisters are social justice warriors is because television shows them, going to church and then coming back and singing in crowds or whatever it is. And they don't show, the hard parts. The hard parts is where we thrive, because that's where the heart just calls you. That's where the most need. It would be like seeing a little child crying on the side of the road and think, well, I don't do that. I do something else. Of course you go there. Anyway, that's where we are. If you want to find us, you find us in the worst areas of any country, of any town, of any village. We're pretty much everywhere. I always say, if you put your arms out to your side about this far, fingertip to fingertip, you'll bump into a nun and never know it. So,
how do they prepare you for that? How does the order prepare you to go into such chaos aside from the idea of God's on your side, I get that, but in the real world application of life, how do you prepare for something like that kind of life?
I want to say that,
or Jesus on your side. I always say God because I was, raised up with the Jesus and the God, Jewish and Episcopalian. So I default to God.
It's all good. It's all good. There's something about the power of a community. So even if I went in someplace that was dangerous by myself, I would never feel alone. I don't feel, I have the whole community. I have not just the Sisters of St. Joseph, but all the sisters are part of me. And so there's a huge swell of power. That power I was talking about when you're 21 and 22 and you're going to change the world? It doesn't go away. It stays with you. That sense, because of the community, it's so strong, and it doesn't, what do I want to say? Everybody's included. Like you just mentioned the different faiths, we don't distinguish between faiths. We don't, like, oh, I'm only going to help Catholics. I'm only going to help this kind of person. It's not, everybody counts. And so there's nothing to stop your heart from reaching out. And do you know how that feels? I don't know if I could.
I know how that feels. Yes, I do know personally, I do know how that feels. And it's lovely. And it is a big bummer, if to be frank and candid, that I think there is a huge disconnect for many people when it comes to religion. Any and all, that they do get very insular, or what's mine is mine and everybody else can fend for themselves. Because let's start with the golden rule and the Christ consciousness in general, that is so missing the point to me.
Yeah.
That it's a real bummer. It's a bummer that sometimes human ego really messes up this divine purpose.
Right.
And even if you're a scientist and you don't believe in religion, you can't look at a flower and not see, the Fibonacci sequence, for example, or something like that, and not see the power of the all of whatever that is to you, and not then look at another human being, regardless of size, shape, color, religion, orientation, whatever, and not see that same glory. You don't get to pick and choose what a miracle is. A miracle is just a miracle. The fact that we exist is the things that have to align in order to create a human being is so astronomical.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That whether you're a science person or a religion person, how do you not see that? And then shine that light with a capital L, onto every being that exists.
Yeah, right. Well, I know, oh my gosh, there's so many fabulous conversations we could be having. I do you remember the periodic table in high school?
Yeah.
Okay. I always thought that really the basic elements of the universe really is love. It's one thing, it's love. And that things thrive when there's love. And the flower grows, the plants grow. I mean, they grow, and you love them back. That's the energy. When you see beauty, don't you love it? I mean, that's the energy that comes out. And right now, when I keep looking at these colorful trees outside my window, it just like blows my mind. It's so beautiful. And just there's beauty. And then when you break love, that's when you get something that doesn't. It breaks the universe. If you don't, you get the negative of everything. And it seems to me that those are the basic principles that we're operating on. But if you think of, that everything you're looking at and experiencing is love. And if somebody is sad and missing that or feels hopeless, to me, I just want to reach out. That's my innate movement. And I think it's innate for human beings. I think it's innate for life. I think that, that you see puppies pile up and sleep together, and you see, the mothers taking care of, no matter what form they're in, taking care of their young. And I think that love is a powerful energy that if you just wake up to it, it's not about religion at all.
It really isn't.
No.
How do you think it is that the sisters can go into these very dangerous places, and that there is this, I would throw awe into the mix. I'm sure that the people, maybe like in gang places where the gangs are, in anywhere in the world where there's gang warfare or that kind of situation where child soldiers or anything like that, there's like this bubble around the idea of a nun. You can mess with anyone, but don't mess with a nun. Like you could even mess with a priest, but don't mess with a nun. You know what I mean? It feels like this special thing. It's interesting.
Well, I believe it's because the nuns believe that everybody counts. There isn't anybody outside of their circle. And so I heard in Venezuela, when things were falling apart and they were stopping all the food trucks and everything, they were stopping, and things couldn't get in, but the nuns could deliver food. They were handing food back and forth. And why were they not in trouble? Because they fed everybody. They didn't say, what side are you on? They didn't say any device, anything. It's like, are you hungry? You feed, the nuns don't draw lines in the sand. It's really, and it's not for themselves. They don't do it for themselves. They really are looking at, if you help lift up society, then society as a whole lifts up. Everybody flourishes.
It's so interesting that the power behind all of that when I think of the Catholic Church, and maybe this is just me, but when I think of the Catholic Church, I think of a patriarchy. But in fact, it's really run by these women, these selfless mothers to all. The irony being, of course, you don't marry and you don't have children, and yet, like the Mother Mary, you become the mother of all beings. And yet the Catholics, when you say a Catholic, everyone goes priest. It's weird. It's almost like you're in your own place over here.
I like to think of, there's the hierarchy and there's the religion
over there.
And the sisters emote spirituality, which is something that everybody has a spirit, and the spirit is fed by love. And seeing that and knowing that, and it comes right from birth. I mean, you that innate love, mother, baby, that intense feeling that happens. And it's not about a doctrine or anything like that, except love. And then when if you read anywhere, what do they say God is? Like I had a nephew who said, I'm atheist. And his mother was really upset about that. She came over to my house and said, yep, my son said he's atheist. What do you say to that? And the sister that I live with said, does he believe in love? And my sister said, oh, yeah. And she said, tell him God is love. And that's it. So if you think about that, it's not a religion. It's a spirituality. It's the energy of the universe.
Yeah, absolutely. Does the Catholic Church at all fund the Sisters worldwide? Do you have to find the money yourself? See, that you're saying no. This is, and I'm going to let you talk about that, but that is insane to me as well. Especially, just to dip my toe in the shadow of the things that are hanging over the Catholic Church and the millions and millions of dollars that are being expended for those situations, that money if those issues had been rectified so long ago, instead of people being moved from place to place and things buried under the carpet, that all these millions of dollars that could have funded such beautiful, important humanitarian education and sciences and healthcare. And it's mind-boggling to me. That's got to be a huge frustration. So that's like 12 questions at once. So yay, go.
Yay, go. I love that. Good luck. Well, the sisters are not funded by the Catholic Church unless they're hired by the church. So if they're working somewhere in the church, I don't know, liturgical leader or something, or music director or whatever. But they do not, when you think of the hospitals and the school systems and the shelters and all that stuff that's going on, that's funded by the sisters. The sisters have to reach out and do that. And the good news about that is that we're not beholden financially to an institution outside, so that's really the good news. Another good news about that is that because, like when you think about nuns building hospitals, just say, well, we don't have any money. How did we do that? Well, it was because I looked at you and I thought, my gosh, you have bricks and a person over there has mortar. Would you help us have a hospital for your people in the community here? And so, see, that's do you see when I say the healing? Because the community comes together way beyond the nuns. It's not about the nuns. We'll start it. We'll say, we will make sure that this hospital is well run. We will make sure that there are, good nurses and doctors, and we'll get this going for the community here. It's not for the sisters. And so we're able to, that's where we get resources. So people want to help that because it's really also about them. It's not about, a building and taking care of a parking lot or whatever it is. I don't know. It's like Sister Peggy saying, or teaching something about learning to love oneself. It's the leader teaching people how to lead, not doing everything for them. Exactly. Yeah. I always tell people we try to work ourselves out of a job. Yeah. So that's it. Teach a man to fish sort of thing, or woman, or exactly. Yeah. So, and so to see, it is hard to see money wasted. There's no question, because, right now I told you a little bit about the Nigerians who are making the vertical gardens, and they're changing the face of Nigeria. $15,000. That's what it cost. And they're educating the youth, and the youth are growing the food, and the youth are starting to sell the food, and the youth will start to imagine themselves as grown-ups and being able to, that's game changing, generational game changing, $15,000. So it doesn't take a lot. What's hard, I always think what's hard is when people don't know about that feeling of giving. They don't know that when you give, you get so much more back. The person who gave $15,000 to Nigeria can you imagine feeling that inside you? Oh my gosh, I changed these generations in Nigeria because I gave $15,000. But I think people have what do I say? If you don't feel full, it's hard to give.
Mm.
And so people give from a fullness.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't feel full, even if you have millions of dollars, it's hard to give because you don't know that you have that in you. It's got to come from inside. So
yeah, we talk about that on the show, the God-shaped hole, that if people have an emptiness to themselves, nothing will ever fill it. And if you're always coming to the world empty and starved, emotionally starved or spiritually starved, or nothing will ever fill that hunger up.
Yeah. That's why it's important to be teaching or feeding the spirit. And not teaching as in doctrine or that kind of stuff, but knowing that there's a spirit inside you that's awesome and unique, and
Is it hard for people to understand that the money actually goes where you say it's going to go? Because I think for many, they think, oh, sure, you give it to that, it's just going to go to this, that, or other, that there's actually real solutions happening. You all are boots on the ground.
Yeah. No, I don't think it is. I think people feel confident. They trust the nuns no matter what faith they come from, faith tradition. So they do, because they see the simple living, and they see that they're not, taking out stock and stuff or whatever you do to build a huge business. We're just trying to help people flourish, and, but we're well educated. So whatever we do, we'll do well. Yeah. And I think they get that. So it's not hard. What's hard is to have people see us now, because we're so invisible. Oh. And the good news, the nuns love that. We don't think, because it's not about us, right?
Sure. Okay.
So for 300 years, they were wearing these habits that really was simply the widow's outfit from, centuries earlier. And so they stuck out, and people, oh, you gave away your best marketing tool by taking that thing off. Well, it's not about us. You would know that a nun passed by maybe what she did, not because you saw her.
That gives me the shivers.
Yeah. Well,
I love that.
That's more what it is. And so people don't see us. And that's why with Sisters Rising Worldwide, if we could gather the stories and help the sisters with their needs in their areas, and then we raise up the stories, so they start to hear not so much the stories of the nuns, but they would hear the stories of the people whose lives were changed because, there was this intersection there, but also because donors gave to help them change. So we're making that connection. Sisters Rising, we call them waymakers. Our donors are like our waymakers, and that they just match up with a need, and then the flourishing happens, and then we're able to tell the stories.
So the Sisters Rising Worldwide, that is gathering up funds that then trickle into the Peace Room, where they can use the funds depending on where in the world it's a necessity? Or is it also not just funds, but as you were saying, supplies and maybe education or whatever it is? It's not just money, I assume. It's
exactly. No, it's two parts. So it's really Sisters Rising Worldwide has two parts. Part one is the Peace Room, which is the platform where the sisters come in and they meet each other and find each other, and they can share best practices and stuff among each other too. But they also, in the Peace Room, they say, this is what I'm doing and this is my need. I need these resources. What do you have? And Sisters Rising Worldwide takes that content and moves it to our public website, which is srw.org. And it moves there. So the public can go on there. And at any one time, we have about 12 programs that we're promoting, that we're saying, this is, we could help. You can start tapping into the root causes if we fund these things. And so there's photos, and you can meet the nuns by video, and you can, and so that's where the money's. We do also crowdsourcing And so we're just raising money, and then we get it to the sisters. But sometimes the need is different. There was a little village in India where they kept asking for beds. Why do you need beds? Well, we have all these deaf girls. Aren't there any deaf boys? Oh yeah, but they put the boys to work and they traffic the girls. And so they're trying to save the girls. So the next question is, why are they deaf? Oh, well, there aren't any clinics up in the villages from where they come from. But there are people in the United States who want to distribute clinics around the world, but they don't know where to put them. So we can connect people like that, or like, have you ever heard of the organization Alight?
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh. They used to be called the American Refugee Committee. And they worked in the Eastern Hemisphere, wanted to work in the Western Hemisphere. We crossed paths. They said, we don't know where to find the root cause of the problem or how to talk to the nuns. And I said, well, do you work in the worst places of the world? Yeah, they said. I says, has to be crawling with nuns. Ask them what the problem is. And the president of the Alight stood up and said, we're going to partner. Let's work together. And so now, to this day, whatever they're working, they're trying to find the sisters first to say, what do you say the need is? And then that's what they do. That's what Alight offers. And in space, it's just, so that's a whole nother huge organization that we've swooped in and is helping the sisters as well. So people are starting to catch on that if you want to know what really is needed and what's really helped, ask the sister on the ground there.
It's interesting you brought up the term root cause a few times. And of course, that seems like a no-brainer that one would go to the root of a problem instead of dealing with the branches. But yet that's not usually what happens. So talk a little bit about that. Okay.
The best way to do it would be with little stories that we've been helping. So now, on the border, I'll just start with the Mexico and United States. And there's a lot of people coming up there. And COVID has hit, and they have shut the doors in America, and people are piling up. So this town of Nogales, which is south of Tucson, down in there, and it's on the Mexican side. And there's a sister there who, it was just, when you see the shelter's not big enough, COVID is spreading, there's not enough lavatory, there's not enough anything. And Alight and Sisters Rising goes there and says, what do you need? And because we knew that she would tell the root cause then. And also when the people come to the border, you've got the drug lords and the traffickers so the people in Nogales are angry and upset, because this was their city, and now it's just a big mess. And this sister says, what we need right now is a beehive oven, which they name an horno. It's in Spanish. We need an horno, and we need shade. And you say to yourself, how is that a root cause? How does that get to the root cause? You know what I mean? Shade and a beehive oven. I don't know. And I said, we're just going to do it. Just do it. So they built it, and they built the shade. It was like a big pavilion without sides, and they put can you picture lunchroom tables under probably 20 tables and chairs and stuff. And this is what the sister knew had to happen before anything could happen. She said, all the migrants who come here know how to make bread, and we're going to make bread, and we're going to invite the people from Nogales to come and share bread with us. And that's what they did. So they couldn't solve anything unless they started to break the tension between the two groups and see that everybody has value, everybody has something to give, and then you can move forward. So that's just an example of a root cause that you wouldn't predict necessarily. That would, I always think you'll ask the nuns what will get the problem going, and it won't be what you think. It won't be a pile of tennis shoes. It won't be, it'll be something else,
Ask the nuns. Yeah. Human trafficking, I imagine, is a huge thing that you have to deal with worldwide.
I would say every order, every place always has to keep an eye out for trafficking. Absolutely. And some of them are main One in India, there was a story where the sisters were taking the women who were trafficked. They come out of the tribal people that migrate, and they come out of the forest, and they would educate them. And they got to the point where they were trying to educate them, and they also needed to give them internships. So they're looking for jobs. That's the game changer. Mm. But the women would get trafficked going, even from the woods to the school where the nuns were, or from the school to where they were internship. And so how do you stop trafficking there? They said, we just need a van. And so for $23,000, they had a van, and trafficking in that area has stopped. And when you think of sisters all over the world, all the hard places where the trafficking is, and they're watching, if you solve each of these little places with different solutions, because it depends on where you are, what the problem is, we could end trafficking. Let's just go for it. But there isn't any place to yet except this peace room now, where people can get that huge aggregate story that we are working on trafficking globally. So.
Wow. How do you, and as the whole of the Nun Society, deal with self-care? And I mean, being in that has got to take its toll, no matter how faithful and how devoted and how full of love and light and hope you are. There's got to be some bad days in there. How do you care for each other and for yourselves in those regards?
I think that I could name, I'll name a few ways, but every sister would have probably their own way. But one of the things is that in terms of like simplicity, okay, sometimes it's just having time to sit in your own chair in a room and it's quiet. It's not like you have to go on a big cruise or a big trip or anything. You just have to kind of get centered again. Prayer is a really important thing. I mean, I'm a meditator, but that kind of meditation, quieting, stabilizing, is really important. And no matter where I lived, I would never be poor because I'm educated. I have a community. I might not have enough food. I might not have something, but I can't be poor. So the sisters belong to this wealth of people. It isn't money that keeps us alive. It's people. It's community. And so we're always, wherever we are, we're in the midst of that. But I think that a lot of sisters, I don't want to say all sisters, but a lot of sisters just restabilize by, we call it going on a retreat, which is simply quieting yourself, whether you do go someplace and sit by the shore or something, or, you have somebody, a spiritual guide with you, so that kind of thing. It's not, but we take care of each other. You watch, you can see when somebody's starting to look like they're burning out, and you come here, move them away for a while and try to help. But because there's a lot going on. But on the other hand, there is so much joy that, the joy is almost, I don't know, that's just it's like overwhelming. I love it. Whelms you over.
If a nun says, I don't know who they go to, Mother Superior, I suppose, and says, I need to go, I need to not do this and step out of it, and maybe even leave leave it. And then can they come back if they say, okay, I just needed a year or something, or does it have to start all over again? How would that work?
Oh, no. Like take a sabbatical. We just say sabbatical. People take sabbaticals, and it's not, that's common because the jobs are huge, as you can imagine. Anybody you see walking down the street, everybody you see has something in their life that they would love to just say, I am sad about this, or this is hard, or, whatever. Everybody has something. So if you're tuned into that, it can be overwhelming. And so you want to, you can take a sabbatical. Yeah, it's great. You refresh yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's good to know that that is a possibility. So regular folks just listening to this can go to the organization and say, I've got some sort of something to give to this, whether it's resource or time or money or building blocks or whatnot, or gardening tools or whatever it is, right?
Spreading the word, spreading the word.
Yeah.
SRW.org. Yeah. Because they can, whatever. There are places that need everything. Everybody has something to give.
Yeah. SRW.org.
Yeah.
Yeah.
SRW.org. We're actually after the start of the year, we're going to do a run around the world. I don't know what we're going to call it. Like, who's running the world, sisters or something. I don't know. But I kept saying, we're only like 25,000 miles around. What if we could aggregate all of our walking? So like if you walk 2 miles and I walk 2 miles, then we got 4 miles added. We just keep adding.
You could ask Beyonce to rewrite Girls Run the World and have it be Nuns Run the World and do a cover of that song.
That would be great. Yeah. So we're going to get anybody who, I don't care if they walk their dog, they can register their dog maybe, they're walking a dog, the dog's walking too with them.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. So I have some questions from listeners that have questions for nuns. If you're up for it.
Okay, sure.
Okay. I have it on here. So I'm going to just pull it off here. All right. Is it decided in the Vatican how nuns decide what their focus is? I feel like we've kind of answered that though, that you go to where you feel called.
Exactly.
Yeah. Does the Pope have much of a say in anything that sisters do? Nah.
No, I would say the Pope is busy about the church.
Yeah.
So he's got his hands full.
And like you said, it's a different vibe. Like the church is the church and y'all are the...
Yeah. He's working with his cardinals although the current Pope has a heart. He's very compassionate.
Yeah.
He knows the needs of the world. He knows he's supportive of sisters, very supportive in terms of, words and, he's.
Yeah, I like this Pope. I think this Pope has got he's got it going on. Can you say that about a Pope? Is that rude? I don't know. How many orders, and you may not know the answer, so you can pass anything out. How many orders of nuns are there? And when deciding to become a nun, we kind of answered this one too. Do you visit? Oh, it's funny. A student will visit different colleges. That's exactly what I said.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there are hundreds of orders. Because a lot of them are indigenous, the goodness rises up right from the ground that they're born in, so they organize around the need that's there. And so there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of orders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a lot of people.
And you're saying about 650,000 nuns worldwide?
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. That makes me feel a little safer. I don't know why.
Yeah, you should. You should.
What is the purpose of those that are cloistered with typical little to no content? And then how do they support them or contact? And how do they financially support themselves? What's their purpose?
Okay. So their purpose is prayer, and they, what they do, so we call them the cloister sisters or nuns usually. Well, anyway, I won't go into that, but anyway, so they're cloistered, and what they're offering the world is prayer 24/7. So that anybody who feels alone or sad or wakes up in the middle of the night and is beside themselves or something, if they could know that there are sisters holding them close in prayer, it's to add that into the universe and the comfort of people. So I think it's a very important role. I'm too hyperactive to do that. I mean, I'm just a different kind of sister. I like to meditate, as I said, but sometimes I think, oh gosh, that would be really nice, for a month or something. But it's a calling, and it's powerful.
I love the idea also, besides praying for individuals, but praying for the world. I remember watching, all around the world, there are little monitors monitoring the vibrational patterns of the earth. and that they've shown, this is science. This isn't woo-woo. This is science. They've shown large amounts of people pray on a particular day at a particular time, that it actually changes the vibrational frequency of the planet.
I know. I love that. I know.
Extraordinary.
I love that. Yeah, I know. It's true. I believe in that. I mean, I know.
I mean,
it's not even belief. I mean, it is facts.
Yeah, it's science. Yeah. And it is that thing that we talked about earlier, where there is no doubt that we are all connected to all things.
Yeah. We're all one. We're all one. Yeah.
I love that. All right, let's see. How is it decided when a sister will take care of which duties in a convent if they all live together? Oh, this might be, I assume you don't live in a convent, so.
I live in a house, the same thing. I mean, I lived there were 6 of us, and there were, another time there were 3 of us, and now there's 2 of us living in this house. When there's more people, you just organize like a family. Okay, now, but in a family, you'll say, okay, the little kids, you make sure the shoes are by the door or something. But in our community, you decide how is the cooking going to go and who's going to clean what and how. And so you share duties. It's great. It's not like the woman in the household who has to do everything.
Yeah.
It's really nice, actually. We don't want to spend a lot of time on that. So we just divide up the duties, and then we're free, Yeah,
that makes sense. This is great. This is like Ask a Nun Anything Day. All right. How often do you get to see your family? Do you go on vacation? So we talked about sabbatical. So how about seeing families and things?
All the time. My big family is very much part of my life. And I used to have Camp Irene at my house, and the kids would come, and they'd have a weekend, and because I have 29 nieces and nephews, and just about that many great nieces and nephews now. It's just great. And so you get to know them, and, part of their life, and, family is very close.
Yeah, that's great. Here's an interesting one. Do nuns go to the doctor's office, or does the doctor come to the nun?
The nuns go to the doctor's office.
Okay. And then this is sort of along the same line. Do you buy your own food at the grocery, or people who work there and bring it to you? This is, I think, under the understanding of a convent, which is kind of a different vibe, I guess. A giant convent full of nuns probably operates differently than a day-to-day nun. Yeah.
There, again, there are some big convents, I guess. And usually it depends on age of people. Like our retirement place, there are people who buy for those who can't get out, or,
Sure.
But you still help each other. You have to help each other out. But
it's like anything. Yeah.
It's not, they have to think that the people there, we're just social justice warriors. We're not confined. We're probably more out in the world than most people. We're more worldly. If you think about it, the opposite, we're out there. But when we're at the dentist, the dentist will stop picking at your teeth because he wants to hear what you're saying. You know what I mean? Or you're aware of the conversations with people, the doctors, the grocery store people, we're out because you want to know, how are people? Is there a need here? So
you bring up something interesting. Firstly, I love that this is what's so wonderful about this conversation to me, because I do think that people have just an idea, whether it's of what a nun is, whether it's the nuns they saw in The Sound of Music, or the nuns they see in Doubt, or like it's very cinema based. I feel
exactly.
Like. Yeah. So it's good to talk about this stuff, because I think it's important to get those messages out there. But I'm curious, what if you're a nun who says, I've always wanted to be a dentist, but I've always wanted to be a nun? I mean, is that a thing? Do you have nuns who are also medical doctors or dentists? Or
my goodness. Absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But usually what they're doing then, like we have doctors that work on the streets, homeless people in Phoenix, or the doctors, a lot of like our nuns in India, a lot of lawyers, a lot of doctors. Why is that? Because that's what the greatest needed. And why lawyers? Because they have laws on the books that said women are equal, but they never prosecute when the women have been gang raped or any of that kind of stuff. So what happens? The nuns become the lawyers. And so you're solving the issue. Same thing with the doctors. The doctors or the dentist. They'll get a van and you take the dentist's place, to where the people are living on the street. You help them. So that's the focus. You always think you need the skills.
Yeah.
That's the point of the good education. You want to be able to offer the best to those who need it.
I love that. That's it. See, there you go. I never would have known that. I mean, it's logical, but it never crossed my mind. Like, wait a minute, I bet that there are nuns that do these other things too. Because you would think you would have to. All right. What about indulgences? That's one of the questions on here, but like the Netflix and the iPhones and the kicks, the Nike kicks, is that stuff that, I mean, where does your human side meet your altruistic side? Do you get to dive into that stuff, or is it just not that interesting when you get to the levels of where you are?
No, I don't know. I think it depends on the people. Like I'm practically computer illiterate. I need a kid, but I think that's my age. I'm not sure. I know what I want the computer to do, and or I want, like when building the platform. We have the most awesome platform. I didn't even know the word platform. I had to learn, what is it? I just said to people, I need this thing to do this. I need that. And so then they do that. So we need help. But that's me, my age. But there are people who are, I don't know, they love we're as varied as anybody is varied.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I remember the story. This is the story of the nuns, where there was a community of nuns living together, and somebody said, I want to have glasses, but the house had plastic glasses. And they said, no, glasses for rich people. We just have plastic. But the nun who wanted the plastic glasses really wanted a rug in a certain part of the house. And it's like, well, that's where rich people might have a rug in it. And then you realize it's not about rich. It's not about poor. It's about living together. And what's simple? Just go simple. So
interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know. I would say, but things aren't a priority. It just isn't. I don't know. You try to dress for the occasion. I mean, you want to dress for an occasion, but you're not going to be the snazzy dressed person in a room.
Yeah, no, I get that too. What do you think is one of the greatest things you've learned about yourself and also about the world at large in your years of your work?
I'd say the greatest thing I learned is that one person can change the world. And each person on the planet right now is one person, and each person can change the world. And it's simply about love. If you love that big, your God is that big. The God of love. We say that, the great love of God is huge. So if you can love that, if you love big, change the world.
And what about for yourself? What's something about yourself?
I feel the same thing. I don't feel a stop. I don't feel anything can stop me. I feel that if, like bring on the problem, I've got people, there are people who would help. I just think, and there's such, sometimes I feel I don't know if selfish is a word, but the joy that I get overwhelmed with joy. It's just, what a gift that is. I mean, that's really, I feel full.
Yeah.
So it's hard to.
I get it. I understand what you're saying.
Oh, good.
Have you had audience with this Pope?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What do y'all talk about?
So, well, he's Spanish speaking and I'm English speaking, and my Spanish isn't that great. But when I've served on a board that brought me to Rome a couple times a year, and then we'd get to see him because of a university that I'm on, and the Vatican sponsors half of it or whatever. But and so he's just very. You can see him listening. It's like he grabs you forward to, he wants to know who you are and what you're thinking about. But mostly, I tell him I'm a sister of St. Joseph. And so, and this is what I'm doing right now in my life or something. And he pulls it in. But he works a lot with the nuns now. There's a lot of groups and committees going on in Rome with the sisters, which is really good. That's new. So
that's great. Yeah. I do get the sense that he has a bigger understanding of the world at large, maybe than some of the others have had. His humanitarian bone is flexes a bit more, which is wonderful to see. And maybe that's just the process of anything as it goes further into itself, that as any entity moves along in its being, that it either grows or it atrophies.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so. And I think too, one of the variables that he has that's different is that he's from a community. He's from a religious community. He didn't come up through just the priesthood. He was always part of a community. He's a Jesuit.
I love the Jesuits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's a community. The community is where all the corners off of you, they round everything out.
Yeah.
So no sharp edges once you're living in a community.
Yeah, and the thing I think about Jesuits as well is that their education is so important, but it seems like it's a curiosity driven.
Yeah.
To me, it feels like it's very curiosity driven, which if you're curious about the world around you, you can't help but being a part of an all, instead of being, the less curious you are, I think the more insular you become, and it cuts you off from the world. So
yeah, and I think they've had a lot of people who come in with professions that are powerful, like Teilhard de Chardin came in as a physicist. I mean, and then you go into, quantum theology, and you could you
awesome
start mixing.
Stuff.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I love that stuff. Sister Irene, you are a delight. I am extraordinarily happy that you are on the planet and that the work you're doing is, and you and all the sisters. I mean, it gives me hope. And I think it's easy to see darkness because it's what, pays the newspaper bills and all that stuff. But to know that there is this great light and this great love that is operating in the world it really makes me feel good.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Yeah. Let it wrap around you. It's always here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Is there any last thoughts you want to, maybe a little prayer for the world you want to say or anything like that?
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess what I'd like just for sisters to know that sisters hold the space so that other people can grow. Think of that. So we put our arms around you, feel our arms around you, know that there are prayers happening 24/7. Whether you hear them or not, the energy can reach you. Wrap yourself in them. And I hope everybody has an opportunity to fill up with love. Fill up those holes, because it's there. And if you reach out to a nun if you want, like I said, where if you put your arms out, fingertip to fingertip out there, you'll bump into one. We're close. We're close.
Yay.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything, and thank you for listening, everybody. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Rate and review Hey Human on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks. Bye.